Do you want to see a little collection starter? Whet your appetites before we get into the main collection tour. Coming up, we've got vintage, modern, comics, random merchandise, odds and sods, spare parts, even just a few bits that I've just made myself. Hello Explorer, my name's Richard and I'm going to show you my collection. It's a full tour of things I've collected since childhood right up to stuff I've probably got for Christmas. So there's stuff all over the place. We're going to actually start in the other room and then we'll work our way through everything back into this room. So if you're familiar with my channel, you know I'm a big Mega Man fan. I played the games growing up. From the original Mega Man games and Super Nintendo ones like Mega Man X. And that just translated into collecting merchandise and figures. I don't think there's that much Mega Man merchandise around, or that at least I've come across, so my collection is kind of small but mighty. And we'll start with some small items. We've got the Mega Man Muscle Men. Picked these up at Sandown at the start of last year. Sometimes you might hear people refer to this as a Keshi toy, and that's just a Japanese name for small rubber toys, like pocket-sized items, like I like. I've got a few different Mega Man action figures. This is the first one. He's one by Funko. He's okay, he looks good, but his articulation, he's not very nice to move around. He's not actually as poseable as I thought he would be. I got this little statue picked up at a Comic-Con, a 3D printed Mega Man. And also, sometimes I'm complaining about Funko Pops because they're a bit all over the place. Like wherever you go to conventions, you see them all over the place. But as a Mega Man fan, starved of Mega Man merch, did pick a few up. So I got a little Dr. Wily. I've got a Mega Man and a Rush. Most things that you'll see today are displayed out of the box. I don't really keep the packaging too often. Prefer to like get hands-on with whatever I buy. If the packaging's not too big, I might keep, or if I like the art on it. Hence the Muscle Man card back, and that the one for the Funko figure. In this middle shelf, we've got our second Mega Man figure. He is definitely an improvement over the first one. He's a newer figure. He's by Jada Toys. A little more poseable, but still in the legs he's a bit stiff. Looks good still, but in hand, not as enjoyable as I thought he would be to muck around with. Got a pixel art Mega Man lamp. Got a limited edition Mega Man coin. So limited edition that there's only 9,995 of them in circulation. And this is coin 47. So it made the top 50 with that. And then we've even got a little bit of vintage Mega Man merchandise. This was my first Mega Man action figure. He's part of a 2-pack. He came with War Machine. It's like a Marvel v Capcom set. It was from the late 90s. I think 99. I picked it up from the comic book shop, Nostalgia and Comics. He does have some accessories, but I think they're either floating around my parents' loft, you'll hear that a lot today, or they're just lost to the sands of time. But yeah, Mega Man. And we're going to head further into the room, further into the depths of the collection. So this video has actually taken absolutely ages to put together, because when I initially started planning it, I looked around my flat and thought, oh my God, what a tip. Everything was just disorganised, and it's taken me a good while to get it all clean, tidy and organised so you can actually see the collection as I'd like you to see it. And so this shelving unit is totally brand new. I picked it up from IKEA. It's not quite where I want it yet. I think I need to invest in some more shelves and bump everything up a little bit. But we'll start at the top here before we move down to one of my main collections. So here at the top we've got a few different board games, plus something I didn't realise I actually owned until recently, when I was going through stuff in my parents' loft. But I got this Thundercats bag. We're not going to get it down now. When we go to the main room, we'll take it through with us, because there's all sorts of cool bits and pieces in there. That bag I got while I was still at school, primary school. I was a really big Thundercats fan. My mains when I was growing up were Thundercats, Transformers, and dabbled in He-Man. If we come down to this first shelf, this is one of my main collections. Modern Transformers. Really love these figures. They've really got great articulation. They look very similar to the cartoon. Really colourful, really bright, great sculpting, great transformations, awesome articulation. just really fun figures. I've mainly been collecting characters from the first and second series of the cartoon, and some of the movie characters, and then just anyone else that catches my eye. Starting at the back, we've got the Dinobots, fan favourites, awesome characters, big chunky beasts towering over everyone. Got Swoop, Snarl, Slag, Sludge, and Grimlock, icon. We've got Optimus Prime in the corner. He does have a trailer, but it's so big and bulky, I don't display that anywhere. How great this figure looks. Just the absolute definition of the perfect Transformer toy. Looks like he's just stepped off the screen. Just beautiful, bright colours, chunky. I love it. And then, if you're familiar with the Transformers cartoon or toys, you'll recognise most of these characters, mostly famous faces. Jazz, Ironhide, Blaster, Bumblebee at the front, got all the mini bots at the front. I really love these guys. They're a bit simpler to transform and getting close to that pocket size that I like. I'm just generally really into giant robots and retro robots. Always been a big Transformer fan. And right at the front, we've got the Micromasters, which are fun little figures because they're quick to transform. They totally scratch that pocket-sized item itch that I've always got. Brilliant little figures. And then if we come down to the next level, we've got the Decepticons. Again, another of my favourite figures from the last year is Megatron. This figure got a bit of a mixed reaction because he turns into a tank, not a gun. And I know there's some purists out there that only want gun Megatrons. I don't mind because I'm only really going to display him in robot form, and I think he looks fantastic. Just in front of him, you've got one of the combining teams, the Constructicons. I think that you've probably heard of them, but if you're not sure, the combining teams, there'll be 5, in this case 6, Transformers that combine together to make one really big giant Transformer. These guys turn into Devastator. At the back we've got some of the Jets, we've got another combining team in the opposite corner, the Stunticons, Transformers that turn into sports cars, and a truck turn into Menasor. Right at the front we've got one of our newer additions. These 3 are jointly called Reflector. They combine to form a camera, and these are actually a Japanese release by Tomy Takara, who released Transformers in Japan, and this is part of a box set called Dramatic Capture, which I'll show you the box a bit later. If we drop down again, this shelf at the moment is all board games, generally kind of fantasy themed. And at the very bottom here, we've got 2 items, the Dramatic Capture box that I mentioned. We'll take that through to the living room so you can see the inside. And then also, this is the first part of my Monsters in My Pocket collection. It's a Monster Clash board game. Picked this up from Argus way back when for about £15. The box is pretty tatty on the outside, but the inside still looks great. So we'll take that through and we'll assemble it in the living room because I really want to show that off because it's cool artwork. And it's a great way to display all my Monsters in My Pocket as well. Right, we're on to part 2 of the Transformer collection. Before we look at that though, I'll just show you the top of the shelf. We have got Heroescape, which was gifted to me by my buddy Phil. He was having a clear out and didn't want it anymore. Unfortunately, I haven't actually played this yet. Just where'd you find the time for all these things? And then on top, if you're a long-term viewer, you might have seen my first trip to Entertainment World, which is a video I did about 3 or maybe 4 years ago. Entertainment World is one of Birmingham's collectible vintage retro shops. And I picked up this cool Action Force cassette case, which I intended to tidy up and use to store wargame miniatures, but poor time management has meant it's just shelf warming, but it still looks pretty. Now if we drop down, we've got the next part of my Modern Transformer collection. This is largely movie characters. When I say the movie, I mean the original movie, Transformers the movie from 1986, one of my absolute favourite films. If you've got questions or the stuff that I mentioned that you're like, what on earth is that? Comment it below and I'll do my best to answer. At the back, the red and white one, that's Jetfire, sometimes known as Skyfire. Depends on the comic, cartoon, toy. There's a bunch of different licensing issues going on there. To Jetfire / Skyfire is right. Got Ultra Magnus, another big chunky guy. Had the original as a kid, still got him in the loft somewhere. 3 Transformers the movie icons. Blur, Hot Rod, Cup. And then we've got Springer, the green one at the back, turns into a robot, helicopter and car, so it's a triple changer. Then RC, the pink one just in front. Lots of famous faces, all from Transformers the movie. That's some more modern Autobots. And if we drop down, this next shelf I think is quite interesting because we've got another combining team, the aerial bots, Autobot jets that combine into Superion, a larger transformer. We've got G-Axis, which is a modern figure, but it's based on a character from the Transformer comics, the Generation 2 line. And then we've got some more movie figures. So we've got Galvatron, who was the Decepticon leader, replaced Megatron. And then we've got his two henchmen. And then next to Galvatron, we have got another famous face if you're into Transformers or maybe really niche Marvel comics. But this is Death's Head. This is actually a Marvel Legends action figure. But Death's Head, he was created for the UK comics. He was a bounty hunter. He was in some quite famous Transformer stories. But then to get him into the Marvel Universe, I think he moved from Transformers to Doctor Who. And then he got shrank down to human size. And then he ended up in Marvel Comics. And then right in front of him, we've got three of my favourite figures. So we've got a modern version of vintage Optimus Prime. Pick this up from In Demand Toys at MCM Comic Con. If you want an Optimus Prime, you don't want to pay for a vintage figure, but you want that look, seriously recommend this Optimus. He's got incredible articulation. He's a good price. He comes with his ion blaster and his energy axe. Nice and small, so easy to fit on your shelf, and just got that classic transformation, but lots of modern articulation. A good price, it's about 20 quid. Then we've got my actual vintage Optimus Prime. This I incredibly stupidly swapped an X-Wing for, a vintage X-Wing, when I was at primary school to get an Optimus Prime who was pretty beaten up at the time then and is probably even more beaten up now. Didn't come with any accessories, but just desperate for an Optimus Prime. He's one of my all-time favourite characters. Then next to him is my own actual sort of vintage Optimus Prime. So this guy is actually a 2002 New Year edition. I remember reading about it, that it was a Japanese exclusive, so I was really surprised when it appeared in my local comic book shop, and I immediately bought it. It's the original Optimus Prime mould. It's got the die-cast parts, but he's got blue windows and he's got blue eyes. The original vintage toy had yellow, but he always had blue in the cartoon. Got his trailer. I'll bring him through to the living room so we can look at him properly, because he came with all sorts of accessories, and I've actually kept the box for him. Very cool figure. And then just below, we've got more board game bits and pieces. Bot War, which is a game I started playing during lockdown, and I think you'll quite like that. I've got all the miniatures in the living room so we can see them properly, because it's all based on Saturday morning cartoons. So something else I want to show you is my before bed reading, which is currently Transformers, the Marvel UK comic. Transformer comics, there was a US one and they reprinted it in the UK, but the UK comics are weekly. So the UK got all the American comics plus all their own UK stories, because the Americans couldn't keep up with the UK release schedule. I've only got a few more gaps in my collection. Really enjoy reading them. Not just the Transformer stories, but everything that's in the issue. All the different adverts for other comics, other toy lines, the letters pages. Really awesome dose of nostalgia. I'd really recommend to anyone to pick an 80s comic book line, buy a bunch of them and just sit and read them cover to cover, because it's been really good fun. I did collect the Transformers comics as a kid, but only sporadically, so there's lots of gaps in my collection, plus some of them I even ridiculously chopped up and used to make some top trump cards, so I had to replace a bunch of the comics as well. And then the last thing we're going to look at before we leave this room is my growing sticker collection. This is stickers that I've picked up at various Comic Cons. More recently, it's stickers I've picked up from some of the collectible shops and from just other collectors and YouTubers and pass me stickers. There's all sorts of stuff on here. Leicester Vintage, their new shop, Henshin, which I want to try and go to that at some point this year. Most recently, Kiki Kuki Toy Club, who is my Midlands neighbour, based over in Wolverhampton, so hopefully we'll see him at some point. Retro Bunga, Nicky, met him at Sandown. Just at the back here, we've got one of my stickers. Recently ordered some more of these, so if you see me at upcoming conventions or toy fairs, just come over and say hi. I'll give you a sticker. So as we come into the living room, we've got my Kallax shelving unit. I haven't put this against the wall because I wanted to maximise the storage potential of it. So I've put stuff both sides. So as we come down here, we've got a load of the IDW Transformer graphic novels. We've got the Marvel UK classics. These are a really good read, partly because they combine all of the UK strips, but the best thing about them is the first 20 or 30 pages of each one has a history of Marvel UK. And that's the thing that I really enjoy reading about those. Got some of my Transformers annuals. If you're not from the UK, you might not be as familiar with these. Around winter, Christmas time, the comic book companies would release annuals, which were hardback editions of new material. It'd be a mix of like games, text stories, and new strips. As a kid growing up in the 80s, you'd normally get at least one of these each Christmas. I've got all of the Transformer ones now. The most recent one I got is the last Marvel annual from '92. This one was really hard to get. This was definitely a pricey one for me. It was about 50 quid. I got it off eBay. And then behind me, if we go up, more IDW graphic novels, a few more annuals. As I mentioned, quite into Monsters in My Pocket. I nearly picked this annual up from a toy fair, and then I discovered that I'd already got one, bought from Woolworths when I was a kid, I suppose. Got lots of stuff I've picked up from Comic Cons, all my MCM Comic Con programs. Though I've been going to MCM for over 10 years now, and this is actually, the 2026 will be the first year when I haven't already booked my tickets. I don't think I'm going to go this year. I'm going to have a year off. Shelves above. I'm a big Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. When the TV series finished with Series 7, it actually carried on in comic book form right up to Season 12. I've got mainly library editions of that. These are these big chunky graphic novels. But also I've got some of the comics. Same with Angel, that one up to Season 11. And then also I've got a few cool books that you might be interested in here. We've got Tomart's Encyclopedia of Action Figures. I picked that up from the works years ago. I used it when I was writing a dissertation for uni. The He-Man Effect. This is a really good read. It's all about 80s toys, the history of 80s toys, advertising and propaganda. And it's done in graphic novel form, and it's quite fun art. And it's also just a really quick, easy read. Very digestible if you're interested in any of those subjects I've mentioned. And then just a few more action figure books and a whole bunch of graphic novels. There's a load of boxes at the bottom, but we'll look at them the other side because the lighting's better there. But before we go into the main room, we're going to go to the shelves just here. Okay, yeah, let's start at the top again. Lots of books. I don't really talk about this in my videos, but my background is actually in art and animation. I did freelance animation for a while, mainly stop motion, so like puppet-based animation. So yeah, lots of art books, lots of kind of creative-based books. But then in front of them, I've got Blockies, which are a current line of Transformers. They come in little blind boxes. They're snapped together model kits. They're very simple to construct. You can do them in about 10 minutes. But I really like them. They're superposable, pretty affordable. They're about £6 or £7 each. And they actually remind me a lot of Action Masters, Transformers that had pretty limited articulation. They didn't transform at all. Their weapons transformed. I have got one, and we'll be seeing him later. And then the shelf below, this is where it probably gets a bit more interesting. We've got a few modern Transformers. Pick those up at TK Maxx. If you do like modern toys, it's always worth swinging by TK Maxx because you never know what you're going to find there. Sometimes you get some good stuff. I've got this little bootleg Ravage transforming cassette. If you're not an older person, you might not be familiar with cassettes, but that's what music used to come on, and stories on tape. Then we've got a couple of bootleg Transformers. Saw these when I was in Belgium, got a bit overexcited and hoovered them up. I think they were only like £5 each. Got my cup I got from Toyplosion. Trying to book up Toyplosion for the coming year. I'm really excited to go to that one again, really enjoyed that show. A bit more unusual in front. This is a project an art project that I did at college. It's Snarl and Slag. There is a Grimlock somewhere who's a knife. It's a cutlery set that we had to make in a jewellery class at college. Just behind, we've got one of my retro robots that I picked up at Sandown most recently. Pretty pleased with him. He is a pencil sharpener and basically he looks like Robbie the Robot, and I really think the Robbie the Robot design from, is it the Forbidden Planet movie and from Lost in Space? Iconic. I love that. That's one of the things I like about retro robots, that old vintage retro aesthetic. A few Transformers, Jump Starter, picked up this actually at Toyplosion. And then my minuscule girl toy collection. Got a little Rainbow Bright. I quite like those action figures. I want to pick up a few more of those in the coming year. I've actually got more Care Bears. I got really lucky at a car boot a good while ago. Picked up a bag of Care Bears for a couple of quid, except I can't find the rest of them. This is the only one that's turned up. I think my girl toy collection might grow over the coming year. Two of my Rock Lords. They're not with the rest of the collection because they don't fit onto the shelf. I am going to make a separate display for my Rock Lords in the future, but for this video I didn't want to break up my random stuff shelf because I mentioned it a lot in my videos and I really like the way it looks. But after this video I'll be disassembling it and rearranging stuff. So there's Rock Lords coming up. And then last of all on this row we have my tiny Muscle Men collection, growing collection. I was going to collect them in any colour. I'm just going to collect the pale pink ones. I just think they look better, and those are the ones that I really enjoyed when I was a kid growing up. And then come down to the next shelf. I've got my South Park Lego. A big South Park fan. This was when they did superheroes. There's also a video game based on the South Park superheroes. Fun set to build. And then we have my little Top Trump collection. I'm not actively collecting Top Trumps, but I just seem to have accumulated some. We've got a few of my homemade Transformer Top Trumps. At the back here, we've got my original superhero Top Trumps. I got these from Beatty's, which was a shop nearby where I used to live. I've got both the heroes and the villains. We used to play these at school and would do heroes versus villains, which meant the games lasted for absolutely ages and ages. But these were very much my gateway to Marvel superheroes and comics. It introduced me to Wolverine, my favourite character. Clearly none of us at school could read at the time because everyone used to call him Wolverine. Fond memories of Top Trumps. And then next to Top Trumps we have this little card drawer unit. We'll take that over to the floor with the other bits and pieces that we're going to look at, because there's some cool stuff in there. So the last thing we're going to look at in this corner is my table where I do kind of my creative bits and pieces. I mentioned I like art, I like animation. At the moment it's all set up for wargame painting. These are some of the Bot War miniatures from the wargame I mentioned before. This miniature game, I picked it up during lockdown, during COVID times. It was just after something that didn't involve any kind of screen time. And so I went back to wargame painting, came across this. It's an Australian-made game. The company's called Traders Galaxy. It started very heavily influenced by Transformers, but has become a bit more of its own thing. But it draws its inspiration from Saturday morning cartoons, 80s nostalgia, and you can really clearly see here some of these designs are based on Transformers. Yeah, if you want to do something that's quite relaxing and doesn't involve any kind of screens, I'd recommend Bot War or any kind of wargaming. So next we're going to go right and look at the other side of the Kallax. So we'll start right in the corner and we'll start on the top shelf. Right in that corner you can see we've got the Ninja Turtles Turtle Power game. This was gifted to me by my buddy Stu. He saw it in a charity shop. Thought I'd like it. And then we've got a few Pokemon vinyls. Got these from Forbidden Planet years ago, like late 90s, early 2000s. I was into Pokemon from the Game Boy games, still play those games. Really like the character designs, really like the video games. The last of my pop vinyl collection, Constantine. I have no real interest in the film, the comics, the TV show, or even that pop vinyl, but I got it at Free Comic Book Day at my local comic book store a couple of years ago. The first 10 people through the door all got given one. I was number 2. We'll move on to look at the rest of the top shelf, which is more Bot War stuff. So the first one that we're looking at, Bot War, the two main armies are the Valiants and the Deceivers. These are all Deceivers, these are all unpainted. Really nice figures, can be a bit fiddly, a bit spindly, so can be a bit, you've got to be gentle with them. But then at the front, there's two 40k Space Marines. This one that's painted was one of my first Space Marines when I was getting into Warhammer. They used to do a box that was 3 tactical squads for £10, and I bought them, stuck them together, painted them all, and I basically just used them as toy soldiers. Now moving on to the next Bot War shelf, we've got lots of Deceivers. At the top here, this is a version of Reflector, but the face is done to look like a Cylon from Battlestar Galactica. And then we've got my version of Megatron, Shockwave and Soundwave. I had to do a bit of customizing and chopping up and adjusting with these to make them look more like their Transformer counterparts. And then that's basically my pile of shame behind. And then the last Bot War shelf is the Valiants. Most of these are painted. We've got at the front, this is Ducal, he's the leader of the Valiants. We've got some mini bots, got all sorts of Autobot versions at the back and on the buildings. The buildings are from a different war game called Drop Zone Commander. Pick these up because they're sort of the right scale. And now we're going to get back to the toys. So if we come down onto this shelf, we've got my He-Man collection. Made by Mattel, they do all sorts of different He-Man lines. I collect exclusively the cartoon collection. This series is based on the cartoon, whereas there's also an Origins line, which is based on the toys rather than the cartoon. I prefer the cartoon collection. I think the colours are brighter, they really pop, they look fantastic on the shelves. They still evoke that 80s toy aesthetic, but they have modern articulation. I just think they look fantastic. I do have one vintage Masters of the Universe figure, my Skeletor. This is a hodgepodge of bits and pieces. So the Skeletor I bought for an animation project I was working on a while ago. Unfortunately his chest has become miscoloured. But then the armour is from my original Skeletor toy from when I was a kid. Can't find his Havoc staff, but have got my He-Man shield, so it can just go on Skeletor. He doesn't really stand up very well anymore, so he can just lie down. I do want to get a cartoon collection Skeletor. I'm not looking to get all of the He-Man figures, just the ones that I like or the ones I have fond memories of. Really love this line. Well, I mean, what do you think? Don't you think they look fantastic? And then next to it, we've got my Toy Biz X-Men Marvel Superheroes toy collection. Very small collection. I was big into the X-Men comics and Marvel superheroes. We seem to get the toys in drips and drabs. Got the Cyclops, Wolverine and Hulk. I can only find one of them, but they came with little backpacks and you press the buttons and they talk. Then I discovered the comic shops in Birmingham City Centre, Nostalgia and Comics, and I picked up a few bits from there, and it became a little bit easier to get some of the American Toy Biz lines, like my Wolverine Weapon X right in the back corner. Love that figure. Compared to some modern figures, it hasn't got the same articulation, but the articulation blew my mind. I thought the figure looked fantastic. And then just next to him is my Marvel Legends Wolverine. I got that one in early 2000s, I think. And then same with the Spider-Man above him. I've got two Magnetos. The one has a switch on his back, and when he flicked it, sparks appear on his chest. That doesn't work anymore. And then my other Magneto, this one's got his accessories, apart from he's lost his cape. But yeah, he's got these little magnetic pieces that will stick to his chest and his hands. And then last of all, in the left corner, we've got my War Machine action figure. Again, can't find his accessories. Hopefully it'll turn up at some point. He came in the 2-pack with the Mega Man. And then this is my 80s random bits and pieces shelf. This is my one and only remaining Mad Balls figure. He's a head popper, locked lips. Got him when I went to stay with my grandparents. If I went to stay over, they'd take me to get a treat. And I got him probably from Woolworths. I did think I'd sold him years ago to Car Boots. Mum gave me a bunch of boxes to clear out. I was quite surprised to find him. I'm not going to be expanding on that Mad Balls collection because those guys are expensive. Got a few Manta Force bits and pieces, a few Transformer cassette stories on tape. I've got a few Star Wars figures. I've actually got a fairly big vintage Star Wars collection. It was something I was big into as a kid, and then there was a person over the road whose mum made him have a clear out, and I basically got gifted like an AT-AT, a Millennium Falcon, an X-Wing, which I stupidly gave away, loads of figures. So yeah, my parents' loft, it's full of Star Wars bits. I've got my original Dingbot, which is part of the Tomy Omnibots line. Pretty basic toy robot. It's a little bit Johnny Five. I really loved that design as a kid. I used to draw it in all sorts of stories and comic strips. Mine's pretty yellow now, unfortunately. We've got my Viewmaster. If you're not familiar with this, you stick one of these little paper wheels inside of it, hold it up at the light, click the wheel. It shows images from a cartoon or a movie, and it makes them look a bit 3D. I think you only get 8 images per wheel. Then around the sides, you can see random bits of merchandise I've picked up over the last year. We've got laser blazers, my Transformers Viewmaster wheel, and that's an example of why I don't like buying stuff in packaging, because I can't enjoy the Viewmaster wheels because they're locked away in the packaging and I don't want to damage the packaging. And then this side, we've got a few 3D Transformers pictures. I've actually got more of these, but the rest are somewhere in my parents' loft. I picked them up when I was on holiday. I remember them being 5p each. They were just in some random tourist attraction shop. What else have we got? On the desk here, we've got a few bits and pieces that I'm working on for maybe a more creative-based video. Might be doing a bit later, further down the line. We've got my tiny collection of plush, which I've picked up. My animated X-Men, Cyclops and Gambit. Got those when I was in Belgium. Got my Slimer from 88 miles an hour. Really cool toy shop I went to in Nantwich. Beast Wars Megatron plush. Got that from TF Nation. Transformers convention that's held here in Birmingham, Europe's biggest Transformer convention. And then on the wall above, we've got a few different pictures. Legend of Zelda, Pokemon. Bill and Ted, Excellent Adventure. That's a Circle K with the phone booth for time travel. That's actually by Gav from Toy Shop on Tours. When I first met him at Comic-Con years ago, he was known as a retro draftsman, and now he does art as well as running his toy shop, Retro D. He still does art, but he does it under the name Cult Locations Inc. Very cool, worth checking out. And then we've got my Monsters in My Pocket collection. We'll have a quick look at it now, but then we'll have a proper look at it on the floor with the board game. And then next to the Monsters in My Pocket, we have a bit of my DVD collection, lots of animation stuff. Mainly modern bits here, Ninja Turtles. Little metal Ninja Turtles by Jada Toys, got those from TK Maxx. Mainly got them because they were a bargain. And you get all of the main characters and they're super easy to display. Come on, a little vintage pullback turtle van. We've only got a few more bits that we're going to look at. Around my TV, got a few video game bits. Got these Mario Kart pullback cars from Rewind Toys. One of the other Birmingham toy shops that I've visited last year. Got a few more Pokemon bits. So Pikachu, when he first appeared, he was a lot rounder in design. It was only when the anime appeared and the cartoon and the video games were getting more popular that they refined the design. I really love that look. This Mario raccoon suit, spring. I've had that since I was a kid. I remember I got it, I think, at a car boot. Is it a Happy Meal toy? I don't really know. Let me know below because I don't know what it's from. Got these little cute Zoid figures. Got those from Belgium as well. That was Vintage Toys of the Universe. I would really recommend going to that toy fair. It was a really good one. Don't know if I'll be going again this year, but good show and they're very cool. And also just wedged up in this corner, we have my Robo Force collection. Really love this toy line. Made by a company called Ideal. They actually came out the same year as Transformers, put all their eggs into the robot basket. 84, didn't expect to come up against Transformers and GoBots. And these had a much more, even at the time, a bit more of a retro look to them. They had a bit more of that Robbie the Robot look going on. They all had plungers for feet, so they could stick to smooth surfaces. They had this cool hugging action. Some of them would have other little gimmicks on them. Compared to Transformers, they just kind of look goofy, but that's why I really love them. I think they're a very cool toy line. There is a modern version, but it's not for me. I don't rate it. Right, we've only got a few more things to look at. We've got the random stuff shelf, but we'll keep that as our finale. We're going to go back to the Kallax and look at all the bits on the bottom shelf, because I think there's some cool stuff down here from what I remember. It's been a little while since I've looked in here. More Marvel UK comics. There's a lot of them. There's 332 altogether. I've got most of them. There's only a handful of comics I still need. I'm hoping to complete that collection this year. As I mentioned earlier, happily reading through them, about halfway through at the moment. It's a really interesting comic line, and yeah, if you'd like me to talk about them in more detail, I'd happily make a video all about them. What do we have here? So this is interesting. This box is... I've still got all of my original Transformers. Mainly they're all up in the loft at my parents' house. But this is all the accessories for them. I really thought I'd lost all the accessories, and then the box turned up this year, so I was super relieved. All sorts of bits in here, from like Prowl and Jazz's accessories to Beast Wars figures, car robots. Also in here we have my original Transformers poster art set. Buy these rolls, they'd come with 4 posters, a handful of wax crayons, and they did them for loads of 80s properties. So... oh yeah, I forgot, I've been teasing the random stuff shelf as a finale, but we've also got all of the various random things that I've mentioned as we've been looking around to go through. So I think we'll look at the random stuff shelf first, because quite a lot of that I think won't be so much of a surprise to you, because it's more recent things I've picked up. So we'll go through that, and then as our actual finale, we will keep all of the things I've been bringing in and chucking on the living room floor as our actual finale. So let's look at the random stuff shelf at last. Here it is, the big reveal. So this collection is made up of some stuff actually that's quite old. I've just kind of been using this as a bit of a dumping ground, and then over the last 2 years it's actually started to turn into an actual collection. Yeah, I feel like it's happened all quite organically. I just really love it, and I am going to break it apart later in the year when I kind of rearrange my displays. But right now I wanted to keep this because I keep going about it in my videos, and I just think it's come together really nicely. But I'll start at this end, and we have, first of all, I'm going to show you, I'm not too fussed about knockoffs. I do get them here and there, but I'm not like a big collector of them. When I went to Philadelphia to RetroCon, I came across these Mexican bootlegs. The stallholder lived near the Mexico border, and he'd just shoot across every so often before he was doing a toy fair and pick these up. It's only $10. I really love the look of them. Like, they're super goofy. What a great pickup. And then we've got my GoBots collection, which I was far more into Transformers than GoBots as a kid, but the toys, like, I look at them now and I really just love them, like the simplicity of them. Some of them actually have quite clever transformations, but on the whole it's just a couple of folds and they're in a vehicle or in a robot. To me, they've got a really nice look to them. They're obviously restricted in the like, you compare them to, say, the modern Transformers, and the sculpting, there's light years of difference. And in terms of the articulation, it's super basic. You might, if you're lucky, you can move their arms and maybe move their heads. But I think there's just a real charm to them. It's just in their simplicity, the blockiness of them, the colours. I really love that they're all like small and easy to display. They're going to have their own shelf somewhere. And then also in here, jumbled up in amongst them, I've got a few wrestling figures. A Big Boss Man, I got him from the recycling centre with his accessory, but it looks like whoever the previous owner was didn't think the nightstick was dangerous enough and had tried to sharpen it in a pencil sharpener. Next along, we've got all sorts of random bits and pieces here at the front. We've got a few different Space Marines. Those are ones that I've painted in the speed painting competition at ChillCon. Really, really good wargame convention that's normally in Sheffield. And then behind this unusual character is one of my own designs. I went to Prague for an animation course to learn how to make wooden animation puppets. So I learned how to carve wood, I learned how to cast. Really happy with how that turned out. There's lots of kind of little random bits on this shelf, and they are things that people have given to me. I've got a small collection of chunky little plush Pokemon. I've been getting those from different Comic Cons. Got here my transforming watch. Picked this up at Toy Fair from Acne Toys. Cool little Birmingham vintage toy shop. I had one of these as a kid. I'm pretty sure I had the one that was black or dark grey. The first thing to break on it was the strap. The pin came out. And then I'm very sure the clip on his back broke as well, so you could no longer attach him to the actual watch. So yeah, I'd been after one of those for a little while. So much nostalgia. Then we've got some more pocket-sized items. Got my two little Thundercats from Andy's Toys and Models. Got the main chunk of my Rock Lords collection. I really do want to do a diorama for them. I think they're super cool toys. Again, they've got that kind of retro look to them where they're quite blocky. I mean, the fact that they're stones and rocks that turn into little rock people is just an absurd idea for a toy. But that's what was cool about them as well. They're super goofy, just like the Robo Force robots. They've got that goofy, nostalgic 80s charm in their simplicity. They've got fairly good sculpts, I think. But yeah, I want to take those and build an actual diorama for them. I keep going about having a rockery, and I want to design a rockery to put them in, probably in one of the spaces in the Kallax. Then we've got a few playground items, my Wiggly Giggly and my Hacky Sack. Those are going to move over to the Kallax as well soon. Probably stick the Dalek over there as well. We've got my Micro Supernaturals collection, 2 figures at the moment, hoping to grow that in the coming year. Really awesome figures. Cool accessories, great gimmick, the holograms, rubbish story. I picked up a couple of random issues of the comic. The artwork is absolutely fantastic. Beautiful black and white, lovely ink work, but the actual stories just aren't particularly good. If you see one, have a flick through, stick it on your wall, appreciate the beautiful art, but not particularly interesting to read. Great figures, not very good story. We'll be adding more. Randomly got a little Borg there. That was another gift from someone from work. Not a massive Star Trek fan, but cool action figure. Nice little sculpt. We've got some more random Transformery bits. I've got my Super 7 Unicron. There is a huge Unicron toy that Hasbro did more recently, but it's so huge, it cost, like I think on the secondary market, it cost an absolute fortune. Even at the time, to me, it was very expensive, and it's as big as an oven, so where would you put it? Whereas this guy, he is based on the unmade Unicron toy from the 80s. If you Google it, you can see what it looks like. It looks very similar to that. And so to me, that's a perfect Unicron toy because it actually fits on a shelf. So that is all of the random stuff shelf. That's a big chunk of my collection, but we've got some of my genuine treasures to have a look at in a moment. So I'm quite excited to show you what's on the floor. Before we move on to our finale though, I think what has been really interesting about looking at these mainly vintage toys after starting with all the modern toys is just kind of enjoying that comparison. Like the modern toys, incredible articulation, generally incredible sculpts, and look like just like you wanted them to look as a kid, like they look just like the cartoons or in the comics. Whereas the vintage toys, the 80s toys, the sculpts are pretty good, limited articulation. Sometimes they're a bit goofy in their design, but they've got just a real, like, there's a real character to them. There's a real charm about the way they look and that goofiness. I really love it. Like, there's sometimes they're designed to quite blocky. Sometimes maybe they were limited by budget or the ability to do intricate sculpts, but they just look fantastic. Like the colours, the brightness, and I think as well they were pioneering the features that we take for granted now, like your holograms, your hugging action figures, transforming, hidden panels, secret compartments, the stories, everything about modern toys came from all of this, and I think that's so fantastic. So much fun looking back on all of this cool stuff. But let's go down for our last bunch of stuff, because I think I've got some stuff that I'm really pleased that I still own. I'm really happy that I could get to show this off to you. So let's go down onto the ground and look at all of our last bits. So first of all, we've got the Monsters in My Pocket game. Like I say, I got this from Argus. I remember it being really good. I don't really remember how it plays, but as far as I know, I've got everything for it apart from the instructions, which from what I remember was just like a black and white A4 page, so pretty sure I could get that off the internet. Really love the look of the artwork on this, and it looks great with all the monsters on. Like if I had the space, it'd be cool to just leave it set up all the time, but unfortunately it would be something that just gets got out for special occasions. With Monsters in My Pocket, it's that combination of I liked the colours, the aesthetic of the toys, that they were pocket sized. Like, I'm not fussed about getting multiples of the monsters and getting each one in each different colour. I just want to collect one of each of them. Mainly, I'm just interested in the first 2 or 3 series, and I remember enjoying the Marvel Comics quite a bit as well, although there was only 4 of them. They all got reprinted over here as like summer specials and in that annual that we looked at. But yeah, I remember the story being quite good for them. 2 warring factions transported from their reality to an American kid's bedroom, but they'd all shrank down to pocket-sized and carried on their battles. Quite a fun setup. Yeah, hoping to carry on with that collection this year. Next, we've got our New Year anniversary Optimus Prime. The box, it's in, I think, fairly decent condition. It's mostly been kept in my parents' loft, so there's a little bit of warping on the packaging. As you can see, Nostalgia and Comics, just under 50 quid. The corners are very slightly tatty, but on the whole, it's in good condition. The inside of the box is still in pretty good condition. There's also a mouse mat that came with it. Still got all the little bits of paper paraphernalia that it came with. And so we've already looked at the Optimus Prime, but we'll transform him. And if we open his chest up, you can see he came with a little matrix of leadership. I think there's a chain in the box, so you could wear it as a necklace. And also inside of his trailer, he came with an Action Master Optimus Prime. So you can kind of see here what we were working with, what I was talking about with the Action Master figures. They all basically followed this template of you had a joint in the legs. You could move the legs a little bit of articulation on the arms, but they weren't great action figures. So yeah, I think that's fairly well preserved, so quite happy with that. We'll stay with Transformers. I've got my Dramatic Capture set. It also came with a Thundercracker, and I haven't taken him out because they're releasing an even better Thundercracker this year. So I'm looking forward to that, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this one. Whether I'll keep him in the box for when maybe I'll sell the whole set in the future, or maybe I'll just sell him. I haven't really decided yet, but it's a really cool presentation box. Comes with all the bits to turn reflector into a camera. Yeah, very happy with this. Like the slipcase cover, like the artwork. So we'll definitely keep that box. So I think we've got only a couple more bits to look at. These 2 cardboard drawers. We've got a couple of different bits in them. In the one, we've mainly got I keep all my modern instruction manuals. for the Transformers. Some of them can be so complicated to transform, I just cannot do them without the instruction manuals. And then in the other one, I was quite surprised when I found these recently, but I've still got quite a lot of the old card backs from my Transformers. So all sorts of cardboard, vintage instruction manuals and vintage packaging. So very cool to have a look through all of this. Got stuff for Generation 1, Generation 1.5, Generation 2. So yeah, I was just really happy when I found this. Again, I thought they were totally lost, so I was surprised when they reappeared. And then something that I found when I was fishing down the Thundercats bag underneath these, when I first went to Nostalgia and Comics, Birmingham's premier comic book shop, I went with my mum, and my mum got chatting to the owner, and she was saying like, oh, I'm a big X-Men comic reader, and he gave me this little box, and it had a really cool poster which is somewhere that I don't know where it is. It's not in the box at the moment, but this was sent through with the relaunched X-Men comics of the early 90s, and it's got a few kind of bits of point of sale stuff. It's got some name tags, a cool little badge, which is something I just think is a bit more unusual. So I'm quite pleased I've still got most of that. And I'm very sure I've still got the poster. It's just, again, up in my parents' loft. There's not much to it. I just think it's a fun comic X-Men artifact. So we're on to our very final item. I hope you have enjoyed all of this. It's been really fun for me to look back on my collection, the things that I've bought, the things that I've kept, lots of nostalgic feelings. I'm definitely someone who enjoys physical objects. Like, I've got no problem buying digital music or video games here and there. Having those objects, for me, it's tied with my own history, my memories. So I hope you've enjoyed like this. If there's stuff you want to see me go into more depth over, or other things you want me to talk about, just comment below and let me know, because yeah, I've enjoyed doing this more than I thought I would. So let's get on to our very last item, my Thundercats bag. So I remember I had this at school. I definitely didn't use it as a school bag because it was too big. And like I say, I really thought this had been thrown away. So I was quite surprised when I found it. But I've already gone through the inside and tidied it all up a little bit. So there's all sorts of random broken figures in here. We've got a bit of an old beaten up Ultra Magnus body. Got a battered Michael Keaton Batman. Got all sorts of accessories, but I found a few different clumps of accessories, so I've put them all into little bags to keep them safe. We've got some He-Man bits, a couple of little bits of Modulock, and one of his weapons. I think he had two. And poor Spike, or savaged at the hands of He-Man, presumably. Mr. T, poor guy, another victim of combat. This is my Zartan from G.I. Joe. Got a few little bits of him left. I think the O-ring that held his body to his legs must have just dissolved or broken, because when I opened the bag he was just all in pieces. The last of my vintage Simpsons collection. These were in a clearance shop. The figures were £1 each, and they came with these little talking bubbles. And I got Homer's accessories as well. An ATST foot. I remember this fell down the stairs, and yeah, the foot came off. I've got the remains of my Thundercats collection, a bit of Monkey and mace, Shatara's staff, the seat belt from the Fist Pounder, and then a bit of that thing that makes Lino's eyes light up. Although this is a bag of essentially broken bits and spares, I still think it's pretty fun to look through. A bit of nostalgia and memories, and these bits could be useful in the future depending on what things I buy next. I would quite like a complete Modulock. So it's been really fun telling you all about my collection, showing you everything, telling you stories, looking at how my collection began to now, looking at the vintage toys versus the modern toys, and just how my collection has grown and changed. It's really expanded quite a bit actually over the last 2 or 3 years, particularly since I've been going to more toy fairs and going to collectible shops and toy shops. And there are other things that I haven't even shown you, like I didn't really go into much depth about my comics or all the stuff that's still, there's a lot of pressure on me to get this cleared, but all the stuff that's still in my parents' loft. So at some point we'll get to have a look at all that stuff. But right now, doing this has really given me lots of ideas of how I want my collection to grow, to change, how I want to display it. So that's stuff I'm going to be working on over the coming year. And I think that leads in quite nicely to what I think my next video will be, which I think is going to be collecting goals and what I want to do over the coming year, like trips, things I want to pick up, things I want to do for the channel. So we'll get outside and get some fresh air for that one if it's not too cold. But that'll be in a couple of weeks. So check back soon. But if you've enjoyed this, click left to see my last outing, which was way back in November last year for Sandown Toy Fair, or click right in a couple of weeks when we'll look at the future. So see you soon, Explorer. I hope you've enjoyed today. Have a great day.